The Nativity is all about the birth of the Messiah. But before Jesus is born, let's meet Elizabeth and Zachariah. Liz and Zach were married and they were always told that they'd make lovely parents, but these days they were too old. Zach worked at the temple, a leader most religious, yet one day he was visited by an angel most prestigious. The angel said they'd have a child, Elizabeth would conceive him. The child-to-be would be called John, but Zach didn't believe him. Zach was so incredulous and showed a bit of cheek. So Angel Gabriel shut him up and made him unable to speak. It wasn't till the child was born that Zach's silence ceased, and thus was born Jesus' cousin, John the Baptist. But Liz wasn't the only new mum. Gabriel had a lot to do. Next he went to Mary, who would have a baby too. But Mary's babe was special. She would have God's son. Yet Mary wasn't married, so how would this be done? What would people think? It wasn't as it seemed. Well, Gabriel had one more trip to Joseph as he dreamed. So Gabriel visited Joseph and told him Mary would give birth, but he should still take Mary as his wife. She would mother the saviour of earth. Then Mary visited Elizabeth. They were family, you see. And when baby John heard Mary speak, he jumped for joy in Liz's tummy. Mary and Joe had a journey back to Bethlehem. There was a big Roman census that included them. They travelled 90 miles. It was pretty far, and Mary was heavily pregnant, and they didn't have a car. By the time they arrived, they really needed a bed, somewhere to get some rest and somewhere to get fed. So they looked around the town, not sure where to begin. Then they knocked on a door, but sadly, there was no room at the inn. On they went to another door, but there were no spaces. So they went on to another, and the door was shut in their faces. Finally, they found somewhere, but it wasn't in a room. It was in a stable, and the baby was coming soon. So Mary and Joseph and farmyard animals galore lay down their tired heads on a cold stable floor. Meanwhile, some humble shepherds in a field nearby were minding their own business when angels filled the sky. The shepherds were terrified, cowering below. Well, it's not every day that an angel says hello. The angel brought good news that would bring them all great joy. The Messiah had been born, a little baby boy. They would find him in Bethlehem. Do not be afraid. He'd be wrapped in swaddling clothes and in a manger laid. Then more angels did appear, singing praises to God on high. So the shepherds headed on down to where the new king did abide. So it was in a stable Mary birthed God's son, the King of Kings, our Saviour, God's salvation plan begun. Far in the east, some scholars saw a new bright shining star. These wise men set out to find a king, a journey very far. On their way, they stopped off at King Herod's palace, but King Herod was a jealous man filled with hate and malice. Herod was in charge. Who was this newborn king? When you find him, let me know so I can worship him. When they finally found Jesus, they brought gold, frankincense and myrrh. 3 fancy gifts lay on the stable floor between the hay and fur. The wise and the learned put aside all rankings, bowing down before a babe who was the King of Kings. A humble babe in a manger laid, adored by rich and poor, the simple and the complex, one day the kind of people he'd die for. But for now, let's remember that little child, the child on the hay, the start of Jesus' gospel good news that we celebrate on Christmas Day. Oh, and don't worry about Herod, he's no cause for concern. Gabriel popped up to tell the wise men to avoid him on their return.